What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about the direction I see the language learning community heading over from a business perspective, and how what we're seeing is a couple of business models colliding with a couple of theories about how to learn language in the most perfect way possible to basically drown out all other means of learning languages on YouTube and in just the software industry overall. So let's talk a little bit from a history perspective. But before I do go down this route, I do want to say, and I hope you keep an open mind while you're watching this video, that this is not about shitting on your favorite method. This is actually just showing you that realistically, what's being promoted and what we're seeing is to the benefit of, in a lot of ways, big businesses. So let's take a step back in history. If we go back to freaking the 80s, how were people taught languages back then? You literally had textbooks with grammar exercises, maybe translation exercises. That's pretty much how everything worked. Now, over time, we started to see more and more direct method approaches where basically it was like, okay, we found out the students don't like learning grammar. Most people don't like it, maybe because, well, they don't understand it or because it's just not something they like. But overall, most people not interested in that. So we started to move to more direct method approaches where we teach the language, but in the language. We kind of hide it, okay? And you see this happening with software such as Pimsleur and Rosetta Stone, which were the first ones really to market in a lot of ways, where they teach you a language, you listen to it, or you watch content and you listen to it, but it's teaching you grammar and stuff. It's just kind of hiding it, just under the surface a little bit, although it's still very structured in its approach. Now, these worked. However, they were very difficult to develop because it requires teachers who understand these languages to look at this from the perspective of a learner and structure it and bring it all into play in a way that makes logical sense. Now, in some cases they did it well, in other cases not so well, but that's basically what they had running there. They had to get the teachers, the material, the structure, all working in perfect unison for you, the student, to enjoy. And then at the end of the day, you would get somewhere between 60 to 100 hours worth of content, and it would be nowhere near enough for you to learn a language. But it would be enough to sell you a product to get you started, and people were paying big money. Now, when I started learning languages back in, 2010, it was still heavy on the book approach in certain communities, although Pimsleur and Rosetta Stone, they're starting to get promoted more and more, especially through, government contracts and stuff like this. Then obviously we had the era of the apps appear, where everyone tried to gamify language learning. They thought, okay, the problem now is that these software, they're not fun, okay? Going through this whole structured approach and little bit by little bit introduced, and you play out these little conversations. This isn't fun. So we're going to try gamify it and make money in that way. So we'll sell you a game. Everyone loves games, right? All you got to do is play our game and you'll learn a language. The problem again is you still need to introduce some type of structure in teaching the language. And if you go too much towards the teaching direction, it becomes essentially just interactive grammar and people don't like it. You go too much towards the game direction, it's essentially a game and you're not really learning a language. So we're still facing this issue where business wants to teach language, but at the same time, it's a very difficult thing to do. We can't solve this. And then suddenly back in like 2016, around this time frame, okay, we saw a massive shift towards input heavy approaches, primarily on YouTube, okay? So you'll see YouTubers start promoting left, right, and center these different methods, such as, the natural approach, or even the highly extreme pure anime approach, where all you got to do is just watch language content that you love and eventually you'll learn the language. You may not believe me that this is true, but I have literally people in my Discord who fell for this and tried doing this for years to learn a language, okay? And there was even YouTubers who went out there and watched 2,000 hours of Chinese freaking TV shows in the hope of learning a language based on all of these ideas. So we had a sudden shift from, okay, well, we can't teach enough of the grammar in such a way that's enjoyable for people who don't like grammar. So let's start shifting away from that and just focus more on just giving you more input, which is where methods such as ALG, which for a lot of people, they probably haven't heard prior to the last few years. In fact, I hadn't heard about it, came into play, where people started seeing this. Okay, so here we have a method where all you have to do is watch content, but it needs to be at a comprehensible level. Okay, that makes sense. But you just need enough content. That's the difficult part. Up until, 6 or 7 years ago, there wasn't enough content for this type of thing to actually be effective or possible in many instances. I remember even back in the day when I was a pure Esperanto YouTuber, people were literally using my YouTube channel as the way to get that content, okay? And I remember people talking about this in the comments section saying they keep coming back and watching me, not necessarily because they like me, but because I produce so much content and they were able to get that input. So we had this shift happen, and now we've got this method that's come out, and this method is promoting one, the idea that this is the only true way to learn a language. Two, that by doing this method, you don't actually have to think. And in fact, thinking is against the method. So if you look at ALG and these types of approaches, it is very against the method. And all you have to do is get enough material in the language that is level appropriate. This is where business comes into play. A lot of businesses started to see this, or, people who were starting businesses, Dreaming Spanish being the best example, where they're like, hang on, there's a massive hole in the market here. All we have to do is create a service that gives you level appropriate content. We don't have to have much structure to this. All we need to do is divide this up in some way. And that's where ALG's perfect levels come into play. We've got these different levels. You follow these levels. You just make content for each level. You watch enough content one level, eventually you can move up. And it does work to a degree, although it takes a long time. Now, this is where it works perfectly with the business model side of things, because what does a business want you to do? Well, they want you to buy their product. What's better than buying a product over the last 5 years? Subscribing to a product. If you haven't noticed, literally every software over the last 5 to 10 years has swapped from a buy once you keep it model to a buy and subscribe model, where you basically pay per month to keep access to that. We basically turned language learning into a subscription service, okay? So here you've got a method which is saying, just watch content, and then you need to do a lot of that for a very long time, but you don't have to think about it. So all I need to do is make a service where you can come watch the content for a very long time, and all you have to do is subscribe. This is the perfect union between business and language learning. Now, does this mean that this is the best method to learn a language? No, but it is the best method for a business to promote learning languages. And very, very quickly, we start seeing other services mimicking this. You get like the sponge something English sponge. You get lazy input or lazy Chinese, comprehensible Japanese, dreaming French, dreaming Spanish. And I guarantee within the next few years, you're going to see this across literally every major language. Any major language that has a big enough market share of potential learners, I guarantee a service for this will pop up, and it will be subscription based because it just makes sense from a business perspective. It is highly intelligent. It is literally ingenious in a lot of ways to promote the idea that the best way to learn is only to watch content. Don't even look at potential, competitors such as books and grammar and stuff, because that will damage you. And instead, all you got to do is keep watching content on our service. So what direction do I think it's going to head? Well, for one, you're going to see more and more and more channels promoting this idea, services naturally. But that's not the end of it. What have a lot of these ones been promoting now? Well, they want you to speak eventually, because otherwise you'll feel like you're never getting there. So how can we introduce speaking in the softest, way possible for someone who's very, very iffy about these things, and then also make it part of the method so you feel like, well, you're actually doing something correctly? Crosstalk. Crosstalk's perfect for that. And these services all promote the idea of crosstalk in one way or another. So what do you think they're all going to introduce eventually? I guarantee it. I don't know when, but it's going to happen sometime in the future. All of these services are either going to purchase tutoring services or they're going to launch their own tutoring services. We're already seeing this happen. We've got Dreaming Spanish on one hand, and then you got Worlds Across on the other. Dreaming Spanish is the input, Worlds Across is basically the crosstalk service. They may end up merging eventually. One may buy the other eventually. I don't know. Or maybe Dreaming Spanish will launch its own crosstalk service. It would be absolutely insane if they don't. Now, for those who I've seen in the comment section of my videos saying, they imagine that eventually Dreaming Spanish will step back and stop promoting this, pure input's the only way to learn a language approach. Because you even see this on Reddit and places, okay? I had a post open earlier, but I accidentally closed it. I don't think that's going to happen. If anything, I think they're going to go more hard on this because it is to their benefit to promote this as the only and best way to learn a language. Now, again, this is not me trying to shit on your favorite method. If you enjoy learning this way, great. But if you start seeing everyone promoting this as the method to learn a language, it's not necessarily because it is the best or the most suitable for you. It's because it makes business sense. This is so profitable. It's absolutely insane. Literally, I've thought about personally launching an Esperanto service that does exactly the same thing because no one else has done it. I'm not going to make much money off of it, but I might make enough to literally live off. Imagine that. I'm just launching a video every day. It's a subscription service. It's going to take someone probably 600 hours via this type of method to learn Esperanto to a decent level. That's a lot of money I could make right there. So I just thought I would talk about that because I find it fascinating. No one else has mentioned this, and I have mentioned it as kind of like a side thing in a couple of videos, and I have seen some people down in the comments go, bro, I never even thought about that. It's so obvious to me, okay? Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I'll see you all in the next video, and if you're not there, I will find you, and I'll make a subscription service for the air you breathe.